Bob Munden. You know him from his appearances on Shooting USA, doing what we call impossible shots. And what he comes up with always is impossible until he does it. But there's a lot I'm betting you don't know about Bob and Becky Munden, who have been entertaining with their guns for 40 years. Mike Irvine has the assignment to report the story of the fastest gun who ever lived, Bob Munden.
Welcome to Big Sky Country, where the mountaintops carve the land and the sky, with the Lady of Praise standing high above the small mining town below. This is Butte, Montana, and this rustic land isn't just home to the mining operation, it's also home to one of the great gunsmiths of our time, but you'll recognize him as the fastest gun who ever lived. Bob Munden is one of the great characters in all the shooting sports. If you don't believe us, just ask him.
I'm not perfect. Like I tell people all the time in jest, I'm not perfect. I'm just the closest thing you're going to get to it. And that's what I tell them, you know, and all in jest, of course, and I have fun with it.
But all jokes aside, Bob is the most decorated fast draw competitor of all time, with nearly 20 world records to his credit, a feat that earned him the title, the fastest gun who ever lived.
Through the Guinness Book, Ripley's, and so on. And that title was given to me, it was, because I have shot guns, drawn and fired guns from leather faster than anybody in history in competition through the World Fast Draw Association, the International Fast Gun League, and so on. And to this day, those records still hold.
For years, Bob dominated fast draw competitions. But after a while, winning wasn't enough. So he looked for another outlet to showcase his talents. So the showman was born.
From cap guns to real guns to competition to show business, in that order. When you win everything there is to win in competition, where you go from there? Do it over and over and over again? And I did that over and again for a lot of years, and then I decided, well, I'm going to go somewhere else with it.
So Bob went out on the road, performing in front of anyone who would watch. These old home movies show him performing at a cowboy action shooting event. And as you can see, Bob doesn't work as a solo act. Wherever he is, his wife is not far behind. You'll never find Bob without Becky.
My life is revolved around my wife Becky. I don't do anything without her, and I don't even want to do anything without her.
Since the beginning, Bob and Becky have remained at each other's side. Becky remembers the early days when they first started to tour with their show.
Started traveling, performing in 1969, so it's been quite a few years. And we started out in a station wagon, and we had our two daughters with us, 4 years old and 2 years old. And we put them in the back with their toys, and we had all of our equipment in the middle seat, you know, and then we were in the front, and we did school assembly programs.
Becky is a shooter in her own right, and plays a role in their shows. And if nothing else, she may be the only person who can keep Bob in check.
I guess that's why I'm around too. Humble him a little bit once in a while so he's, you know, his hat doesn't get too tight.
Together, Bob and Becky have brought the shooting sports to an audience that might never have been exposed to guns without them. Using blanks in their 6 guns, the Mundens have performed in convention centers, malls, and car dealerships.
We've done shows at amusement parks in New Jersey and New York, and they had no idea that you could shoot a gun and not kill somebody. I mean, really, it's astounding, but they're out there. So we're able to talk to people and maybe soften the image of the handgun. We're proud that we can represent the shooting sports in our own way and maybe introduce them to people that don't even know they're out there. Because we do go to the public a lot. We do our stage show anywhere. We go to shopping malls and sports shows, and we're right there on stage talking to people. We're shooting our guns.
And Bob's reach goes even beyond their stage show. The fastest man who ever lived first became a TV celebrity in the 1970s. Here's a clip from the Mike Douglas Show.
The most feared man was the fella with the fastest draw. To show you what we mean, we have the fastest man with a gun who ever lived. Here from the Guinness Book of Records, and it was a real chore getting him out of there. is Bob Munden.
Nowadays, Bob and Becky spend less time on the road and more time in their Montana home. This open land is the perfect place for the Mundens to do what they do.
Well, first of all, we got the freedom to do what we do. There's nobody saying, well, you can't do this, can't do that. California, if it's not illegal, it costs you. As an example.
The open land also gives Bob a chance to practice. You'll find him under the blue sky shooting anything he can, constantly challenging himself to make the impossible possible.
That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm here on Shooting USA. That's why I do what is called impossible shots. That's the challenge. To do something that is theoretically impossible. You could never do that. Well, I won't know that until I try it.
Whether it's trick shooting or fast draw, Bob learned early on he would need the right equipment to keep up with his talents. And in true Munden fashion, Bob was going to get better equipment by building it himself.
So through the process of trial and error and changing the gun around, the lock system and so on, then I learned how to build guns. For my own purpose first. And then other people started asking me to do their guns because my guns were so efficient.
Those other people included fellow shooters and worldwide known celebrities, including NBA Hall of Famer Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and country music singer Randy Travis.
Anytime you see Randy Travis's bus going down the highway and he stop, walk up there and say, hey, I hear Bob Munden build you got any of those guns with you? And he'll show them to you, I'm sure, if he's got them with him.
For more than 40 years, Bob has made friends everywhere he's been. He's become a world champion, an entertainer, and will leave behind one of the greatest legacies in all the shooting sports, known by shooters and non-shooters alike as the fastest man who ever lived.
Thanks, Mike. And after that report, there is no question here, Bob is a showman. But he's also a master gunsmith whose work on single-action six guns is in big demand. Coming next, Bob shows us how he makes a sick Colt run smooth as glass.
Shooting USA is brought to you by Smith & Wesson. Safety, security, protection, and sport. And by Crimson Trace Laser Grips, the world's only grip-integrated laser sights. You're watching Shooting USA, awarded Best Outdoor Program by the National Shooting Sports Foundation.
He calls his work six-gun magic, and if you are lucky enough to get a Bob Munden Action job, you will absolutely agree. But what are Bob's tricks to turn an ugly factory action into magic? Well, since you want to know, it's our job to find out. Nowadays, Bob spends most of his time in this shop behind his home, working his six-gun magic on single actions. What started out as building up his own guns became one of Bob's favorite hobbies and a second career.
When I pick up a gun, I pick it up and I think, well, you've got some problems here. I kind of feel like a doctor, a surgeon. When I pick up a gun, I say, well, okay, baby, you got problems, but I'm going to fix you. I'm going to make you perfect. We want this baby right, it's going to be. So now I'm going to go thin this out a little bit here.
The guns Bob has received in his shop don't technically have a problem. They just haven't had a Munden Action job yet.
But when they come out of the factory, remember the factories, their job is just to get them where they work safely and right out of the factory. But that doesn't mean they work right. It doesn't mean they're just guns that are production guns.
This time it's a Colt single action about to be worked on.
This gun right here is an absolute genuine Colt, 45 Colt single action. It's nickel plated, 4 3/4, and it's 45 caliber long Colt. And I'm gonna tear this gun to stock. Now, you know, this gun, I'm gonna tear this gun down and do an action trigger job on it.
Right now, this Colt has a 6-pound trigger and is dependent on the pressure from the mainspring to operate. When Bob's done, it will have a 2-pound trigger pull, a custom-fit bolt and trigger spring, and Bob will trim down the mainspring, lightening the pressure. The less pressure means there is no room for error in setting the timing and tolerances of the rest of the gun.
Well, when you do an action trigger job, when slick one up where it should be, then the gun has to be perfect or it will not function because it doesn't have the high pressure springs in there pressing them.
As Bob starts stripping this 6-gun down, you'll notice one thing as he works. Everything is done freehand.
I do it by hand so I can feel everything. Because I go by feel and adjustment big time. You know, in other words, it takes touch to build one of these guns. You can't just throw them together.
The first step is filing down the cylinder stop. This small bolt controls the cylinder's timing, making it a key component to the gun.
This is the heart of the gun. This is a very, very important part of the gun.
A series of hand files and grinders are used until Bob has found the perfect fit for the cylinder stop. And that same technique is used for the hammer. Here it is right out of the gun. Rough sides, jagged edges, all of them need to be smoothed out. It's a trial and error process, taking off little by little until the hammer cocks smoothly. A Munden Action job is, after all, about improving the gun parts, not replacing them.
That would be a cheap out just to use a new part every time on everything you have, but if I can make that part work efficiently, then I will use those parts, but I have to correct them and set them in place right. Those parts are ready to go in that gun. There might be some adjustments possible, but I've done so many of these, it may not be necessary. Because I just know by looking at them how far to go and this and that.
With the trigger back in place, Bob moves to replace the bolt and trigger spring with a piece of piano wire. The wire has to be custom fit to each gun.
It looks like it might be right on the money.
Piece by piece, part by part, Bob files, grinds, and trims down nearly every piece of the Colt until he can dry fire the gun without any friction or flaws in the action.
Absolutely perfect.
Only then does Bob consider this pistol part of his 6-gun magic.
You know, I use the term 6-gun magic because it's almost like magic. You know, when I'm done with the guns, it's really a pleasure to have them and own them, and they last and last and last. And I'm very proud of them. And that's why I don't have anybody working in the shop with me. They work for the money. I work because I love to do it. And the money's an extra bonus, you know, but I like doing it. I like making them right. I take pride in it.
And for those of you who have sent a gun to Bob, you're probably wondering if this Colt is yours. Well, Bob has the answer.
Belongs to Michael Netland. Netland. He lives in Duluth, Minnesota. He sent this gun for me to do for him, and here it is. Boy, you're going to love this, but you're going to kiss me right on the lips when you get this gun. You say no? Well, good, you passed the test.
So I guess we owe Michael Netland a DVD copy of the show since it was his gun. And you probably want to know what Bob charges for his action job. Well, what you just saw cost $290. But be prepared to wait. He is in big demand. And so is Todd Jarrett teaching tactics. This